Trump's second inauguration, the remarkable return of Donald J. Trump. Well, welcome to Mark and Pete, two blokes with half an opinion. Now, here's a thought.
Inauguration or exasperation? An inauguration is essential for the US Constitution and empowering the president's contribution. At the same time, to avoid added prosecution, provide the occasional opponent retribution, escape from being in an institution, taking over other countries as a solution, and even giving up bad habits and prostitution, ensure migration redistribution, give Biden's a stay of execution, increase the Earth's air pollution, and invoke a new American revolution. Hold on to your seats for everyone. It's going to be a wild ride. Yes, indeed. Well, we have the return of Donald Trump. His inauguration on the 20th of January will see him as the 47th President of the United States. So, Mr. Pete, I ask you, what are your expectations, not just for the United States, but for the rest of the world? I'm holding on to my seat.
Well, it's going to be brilliant, isn't it? We at Mark and Pete, I suppose we could describe ourselves as an anti-woke podcast, perhaps one of the earliest to adopt that position, even before we'd heard of woke. So we're looking for woke people to be crying in the streets and screaming, but sadly not too many, because so many have come over to see that Trump's second inauguration will lead to greater prosperity, greater presence on the world stage, and they'll be won over, in other words. In fact, in a recent survey of 56%, a recent poll rather, 56% of American voters believe that Trump's second term will be successful. Now, that's interesting. I mean, his personal popularity is around 46%, I think. But people have been won over. I think, Mark, mainly by how terrible Biden was as president. They think, well, it can't be worse, can it? So they're looking forward to Trump's inauguration, as we are. So what we've got to look forward to? Well, some attempts by the woke BBC over here and CNN and MSNBC over in the States to paint this as a dark day, but really it's going to be a great celebration of really like a real inauguration. We're inaugurating what could be a great time for the prosperity of the US, which will, if we can get a good trade deal, especially, will rebound over to here in the UK as well.
Well, Donald Trump was the 45th president of the United States. He is now the 47th president of the United States. Now, many people are saying, well, I wonder what happened to the 46th president of the United States. In fact, even the 46th president of the United States can't remember that he was the 46th president of the United States. But that's another story. The fact of the matter is that Donald Trump is probably deemed to be the most controversial president in history. Now, why is this? And I sort of alluded to the fact that, he's a man who has been under prosecution. He's had personal life interrogated to a fine degree beyond many other presidents. And in fact, what's interesting is that he's already started in terms of sort of laying out his ministers and what he wants to do. We've already seen in the Middle East with some of the changes that are happening, albeit that the Bidens are taking credit for it. But the fact is that the presence of Donald Trump in the White House is making a lot of leaders around the world rather jumpy. Wonder why? Because you just don't know what he's going to do. Hence the principle being hold on to your seats, folks, because really, what is he going to do? We know he's going to tackle things like the immigration problem. And I think that's something that he probably will get to grips with. The economy, now, as we know, the United States has got a mountainous debt. I mean, that's something that definitely he will address. And why? Because part of the reason, which I think is one of the controversies that I think will face the United States and also other parts of the world, is the fact that he will drill. He will drill oil and he will keep the mechanisms going.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Energy.
Yeah, I think that's one crucial thing. So in terms of what effect he's going to have, it's just something that simple that's going to change it, because the part of I was talking about us being anti-woke. Part of the woke agenda has been this slavish adherence to the more extreme end of climate science. Believing that you can't use oil or can't use fossil fuels, whereas really, even if you accept the main tenets of the global warming lobbies, that there is global warming due to fossil fuel use, it still doesn't mean you have to cut it out completely. It's not going to be that extreme. So Trump's approach is different to other countries in the developed world, so it'll give them an advantage, which means hopefully that others will follow, including Britain. Let's hope so. So this could be the biggest, the decision policy proposal with the biggest effect that he could have. Just simply drilling for oil. Who'd have thought?
Yeah, well, and also, of course, there is one word which I think could be a term or a word referenced quite extensively. We'll see. The word is tariff. And of course, when you put tax on goods coming from places like China, that will possibly help the United States, but it will change the dynamic of the entire supply chain. Now, of course, China has been a powerhouse when it comes to manufacturing, whether it be in automotive products, consumer goods, and many others. And in fact, ironically, a lot of the US big manufacturers or big service-based companies have used products and services from China. But of course, what Donald Trump's very conscious of is if it's not made in the United States, folks, it's goodbye, or at least the word tariff will be applied to you.
Yes.
And I think that this is the thing where it won't just affect China, it will affect other parts of the world. So I'm really keen to sort of see in that sort of chess playing what will happen as a counter move. What's your thoughts in terms of what other countries will do there?
Yeah, it's interesting. Trump was always accused or celebrated for using 4D chess in the past, and it didn't always seem like that. But now we see coming into this second term where he's actually believed he was going to win, whereas he didn't in the first term. It seems it was more of a publicity stunt. But in this reimagined Trump, we see his strategic thinking. I would say strategic genius. Having oil going towards being energy independent gives you an opportunity to be very robust in your policies abroad. He's talking about having important strategic control over places like Greenland, and taking control back from China of the Panama Canal. For those who don't know the details of it, just briefly, Chinese companies have control over both ends of the canal. Now, at the moment, that's not effective things, but in time of war, or if tariffs were to be introduced, for example, to an excessive extent, to try and get China to behave itself as America would see it, or as Trump would see it, then they could counter by closing down trade passing through the Panama Canal. So his strategic thinking there, taking back control of the Panama Canal and of Greenland for control of that part of the ocean, is absolutely brilliant, because then it frees him up to be robust.
Yes.
Use of tariffs. Well, Trump has openly said in talking about tariffs, the reason the tariffs he's proposed are so high is so that there aren't any.
Yep.
The idea is that they use strategically to scare people into coming to their senses and doing a good deal, stop trying to cheat, as he would say, the US public by manipulating their currency, as he's accused China, I think correctly, of doing, in order to undercut American businesses in America. And so he has said, well, I'm going to put these huge tariffs on, but there won't be any tariffs because they'll back down. So
yes.
It's the same idea that he uses in military strategy. You say, well, I've got a huge military. You build up the military, which he's looking to do. You make sure that you can back up any threats by saying, look at my capability, but then you don't have to go to war.
Well, here's the thing. Let's take an extension on that, because what he mentioned, even during his campaign before he actually won the election, Ukraine. Clearly, this war has lingered well beyond what most people would want. What are your thoughts in terms of what he might do with Ukraine?
Well, this is my thoughts. You can add yours. I think that he is going to pressure Russia and Ukraine into coming to a deal quickly,
Yeah,
and I believe he is in position to do that, especially if he is able to say, "Well, look, I can provide the oil that Europe needs," and in fact, they're not going to be dependent on Russia, and therefore Russia's going to be in trouble, and so he can use pressure on them. On Russia that way. On Ukraine, of course, he can simply cut the aid to them, so
yeah,
he's got pressure that way. This is what I think. But pretty simply, I think they're going to keep Crimea, and there's going to be some sort of territory given to Russia so that they can claim a win. But the main part of Ukraine will be kept as it is, and there won't be Russian presence in Kiev or anything like that. But in terms of one of the major things is should Ukraine be in NATO? Now, Trump is not necessarily a fan of NATO as it is, anyways. I think what he will say is, no, I'm not in favour. They come to a deal with Ukraine not being part of NATO, but they've been to help Ukraine. Say America will lend you the support in the future. So that's why. So it'd be an arrangement with America rather than NATO. That's what I'm saying, that from things that I've heard people say in the various hearings they've had in the Senate, but
yes,
I don't know.
And here's the other thing, which is a slightly different tack. Of course, one of the reasons why the inauguration is actually being conducted indoors, of course, is because of the perceived cold weather. Now, there's a bit of history here, because in 1841, folks, you'll remember this, the then President, William Henry Harrison, who was 68 at the time, gave the longest inauguration speech in US history in very cold, wet conditions. And of course, he caught a cold and subsequently died of pneumonia.
Yes.
Now, of course, obviously, the last person to have an inauguration indoors was, of course, Ronald Reagan. You remember
an
him?
elderly gentleman himself.
Oh, yes. But we saw what happened with his regime. He had 2 terms, and Reaganomics went on.
Well, it was the second one that was
yes.
It was the second inauguration that was indoors. Yeah.
Yes, but the fact of the matter is that Trumponomics, or
yes,
we're going to have to sort of come up with a new term for what is really the point of uncertainty and unpredictability. So here's my last question to you, which is, what unpredictable things do you predict that Donald Trump might do during his 4-year term?
Well, here's the extraordinary thing. You see, I think he will do unpredictable things, but I think they'll be all part of a strategy. I think seeing how strategic he is. Like, it seemed like a mad thing to say, "Oh, I'm going to buy Greenland and take back the Panama Canal and turn Canada into the 51st state." Look, these seem like stupid things, but if you think about what they are about, negotiating with Canada, saying, "Well, we don't need your trees or your oil. We've got enough of our own," is a good negotiating tactic. Greenland is needed as a military base, and Panama Canal. Well, I talked about that already. So, unpredictable things that he says, I think, will have behind them a predictable strategic aim, which is to put America back as a major power, such that trade works, so that they'll be wealthy and business will work, which I think is Trump's main. Well, it's quite obvious it's Trump's main aim. So, although what unpredictable things, I never predicted him saying we're going to buy Greenland. So I think, I don't know what they'll be, but I don't think they'll really be, when you look behind it. I don't think they'll be outlandish at all.
Well, I agree. I think there is an irony, although please, Donald, come and buy Britain, but that's another matter.
Yes,
he's probably got for £3.50.
Get it for a bargain. Yes,
he'll get a bargain. But the fact of the matter is, I agree. I think that what you're seeing is, on the surface, this bravado, this what they call the man behind the curtain. Essentially, he's really pulling the strings. And ironically, although many people think that there may be some turbulence, I think what we'll see is actually predictability, that will unfold, particularly when it comes to economic decisions. And that's really what everybody wants. We have not had a consistent and predictable time in the economy for quite some time. And maybe he's the man to do it. We'll see. But I wonder what our podcast audience thinks, particularly in America or anywhere else. Are they still hiding under their seats or holding onto their seats? We'd love to know.
Yes, Trump fans and Trump skeptics, let us know. Go to markandpete.com. Make sure you're subscribed, and you can comment on this and in fact on every episode. But that's it for Mark and myself for this week. We'll be back with you next week with another episode in the second Trump era, and we'll catch you next time.